In this video, we are going to analyze every single state and analyzing when the last time they voted for the opposition party was. Because what you're going to see is that a lot of states have been very consistently voting for one particular candidate, and we're going to see the extent of that in this video right here. So obviously, you have all of these states that voted for the Republican Party and all of these states that voted for the Democratic Party, and I'm not going to go through which ones voted for which, but what we are going to look at is look to see 2020 were there any differences. And sure enough, there were 6 states that voted blue in 2020 that flipped to red in 2024. Those states are Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. So those 6 states last voted for a Democratic candidate in 2020, but there's no state that last voted for a Republican candidate in 2020. 2016, you have no state that last voted for a Republican candidate in that year, but you do have a district, Nebraska's 2nd district, having gone blue in the 2 elections since then. This is the last time the Nebraska's 2nd district went red, and no state went Democratic for the last time in this election either, because they really won a ton of differences between 2016 and 2024. Somewhat shockingly. And again, I know it's a bit of a surprising fact. 2012, no state voted Republican for the last time in 2012, but several states voted Democratic for the last time in 2012. Of these states that flipped, Iowa, Ohio, and Florida, as you could tell here, never went back to the Democratic column. The other states did go back in 2020, but those states didn't. So they last voted for a Democrat in 2012. Also, Maine's 2nd congressional district went to Trump in the last 3 elections. So 2012 was the last time Maine's 2nd congressional district went for a Democrat as well. 2008, this is the last time that Indiana and North Carolina wound up supporting Democrats. As you can see, since then, they've been in the Republican column, although one state, a lot more solid than another state. From 2004 to 2008, we have a lot of states shifting. In the West, Nevada, Colorado, and New Mexico all flip blue. In the East, Florida, Virginia, North Carolina all flip blue. Iowa flip blue as well. 2004 to 2008 was one of them, and Iowa, Ohio, and Florida as well. 2008 was one of the most dramatic shifts in U.S. presidential history, from 2004 to 2008. Yes, I get that Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Tennessee, and West Virginia became bluer, whereas, obviously comparing something like 2024 to 2020, every single electoral vote except for Nebraska's 1st district gets redder. But still, the shift here is just dramatic between 2004 and 2008, as almost everywhere in the country gets bluer, many by a significant extent. I mean, it's crazy, to be honest. It's crazy as to what happened, and also how it went from an election where by method of the tipping point state and by the popular vote, probably the biggest Republican win in the 21st century, all the way to the biggest Democratic win. I mean, Bush won the popular vote here by 2.6%, only for Obama to then win by 7.2%. I mean, it's a little bit crazy as to how we had, went from one of the most favorable cycles for Republicans in recent U.S. history into what was arguably considered to be a blue wave. And Republicans gained most of these seats back, A lot of these states they gained back, even if it took a while. Like Nevada wouldn't go back until 2024, obviously. But North Carolina and Indiana will go back in the next election. Florida, Iowa, Ohio would go back in 2016. But they never got back Virginia. They never got back Colorado. They never got back New Mexico. Look at these states. They have just been consistently, in the Democratic column ever since, as they have really taken hard stances towards the left. Granted, New Mexico voted blue in 2000 and was, always seen as a Democrat-leaning state that Bush won in 2004, but that was the Republicans', first win in the state since 1988. And even that win, again, Bush won by just 0.79%. If New Mexico went 0.8% to the left in 2004, it never would have went for a Republican, ever since 2000 and no, since 1988. I mean, yeah. So Colorado, New Mexico, and Virginia last went for for Republican. In 2004. Nevada would have joined that list, but it voted for Trump in 2024, so it's thus been off the list. 2000. Now, no state voted blue for the last time, even though, Bush flipped 2 states. But this was the last time that New Hampshire wound up supporting a Republican. Even though Trump got very close in 2016, he could not flip the state of New Hampshire. 1996 gets interesting. This was also a pretty dramatic shift, but not as dramatic, I think, as the 2000, considering that Bush barely and controversially won this election, because, the result in Florida was super, super close. But 96 was the last time that a lot of states in the South went for a Democratic candidate. Arizona was on this list until 2020, when Biden flipped the state. You also have Arkansas and Louisiana and Missouri and Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, and they all last voted for the Democratic candidate in 1996. Bill Clinton was a Southerner from Arkansas, which significantly contributed to his victory. But, since then, these states have really just solidified their margins as being solid Republican states in recent memory. And, 96 was the last time that they got them. Now, 92. Now, from 96 to 92, Colorado, Montana, and Georgia flipped red. But, as you can see, Clinton gained electoral votes. And this was because, several states wound up flipping towards the Democratic Party. Arizona was one of them, and what was the other one? What was the other state that flipped towards Democrats between 92 and 96? Oh, Florida. Jeez, I didn't see that. Now, Florida would vote for Democrats, after 92, and Georgia would because of 2020. But Montana would... Oh, wait, Florida went blue in 96, but still. But Montana last went blue in 96. It's been solid for, Republicans ever since then, even though in 2008 it got too close for comfort. And Arizona would vote blue again in 2020, so would Georgia, so those states can't be on the list, obviously. And, Colorado would obviously vote blue many times after 1982. But that's that. Now, 1988, this is interesting, because this was the last, time that Republicans really had a huge landslide election. So many states, again, the shift from 88 to 92 might have been probably was even more dramatic in a way. Because 1992, Clinton wins the popular vote by around 5.5%. In 88, Bush wins it by almost 8%. That was a more dramatic shift. Now, the most dramatic shift in U.S. history is obviously, as we know, going to be, As you know, the most dramatic shift in U.S. history is going to be between 1928 and 1932. But, look, only Iowa gets redder during that time. Only state. And Utah also had a massive swing towards Perot, but still voted for Bush. Like, and Maine also had a hard swing towards Perot. But still, like, Democrats really made huge gains in, in 92 compared to 88. And that's very important to understand. And quite a few of these states never went back. Like in the Northeast, Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, except for the 2nd Congressional District, Delaware, Maryland, last went red in 1988. California also joins this list as last having gone red in 1988. Illinois, another state that last went red in 1988. And Wisconsin, because they went blue, but Michigan and Pennsylvania, they were on this list until 2016 when Trump finally flipped these states back into the Democratic column. But like for a ton of these states, and you can even really tell with West Virginia going blue in 88, and then obviously as to how solid Republican it is, you can see from this map where the huge political shifts were, in the last, while, but like a lot of states last went red in 1988, especially in the Northeast. 84, you have even more states, because think of the states that were too Republican to go red than, like, Hawaii is in this column. You have Washington and Oregon, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New York. Wisconsin was in this category until 2016. What are the states? I'm not sure if there's any other states I could think of that last went red in 1984. Because it's tough when you look at the maps and then see. Because then you have to kind of figure out which ones did and which ones didn't. It gets tough. Now, 1980. Now, Minnesota was the lone Democrat state in 1984. D.C. is also never voted for Republican. But Minnesota, you could tell through these maps, has always been a reliable state for the Democrats. They've always voted blue. Again, the closest that it came to going red was Trump, 2016, when, again, he made those gains in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and flipped those states, but he could not do the same there. But Minnesota still went, blue in 84, and it went blue in 1980 and 1976. Minnesota last went red in 1972. So that's the longest Democrat state, except for D.C., which, through its entire existence has always voted Democratic. But 1976, we do have to analyze this because there were several states in the South that last voted Democratic in 1976 because Carter pretty much swept the South, save for Virginia, because he was a Southerner himself. Now, obviously, quite a few states went blue in 92 and 96. We talked about Louisiana, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, and even the states that didn't, North Carolina would wind up going blue in 2008. Virginia was Republicans had held that state every single year since. Now it's solid for Democrats, but they held that state everything from 1964 to 2008. From the year 64 to 2008, Virginia didn't go for a Republican. But 76, the other solid South states that, didn't go for a Republican in 1992 or 96 wound up going blue last in this election. Texas is an example. Mississippi, Alabama. Double checking, but yeah, South Carolina is also on that list of having last gone blue in 1976. So quite a few states again on that list. And Oh, wait, for states the last one read in 88, I think I forgot Oregon and Washington. In 84, I think I forgot Oregon and Washington. But then there's some states we still haven't gotten to yet. These hardcore Republican states, again, 1964. Last time Indiana until 2008, same for Virginia. And, Barry Goldwater really just got shut out of the country. This is one of the biggest wins for Democrats in history. And several, states in the Mountain West, like Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, except for the 2nd Congressional District, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Alaska, last went blue in 64. So they're on a huge Republican streak. Just started bringing that up. And where could I see some of these trends being bucked? Looking at the 2024 election map, there's not really too much I see. Now, based on the 2020 map, I would have thought the Democrats could get to Texas, but the 2024 results in that state, partially due to voter suppression, makes me think that's going to be very tough for Democrats to get to Texas anytime soon. Alaska, again, the big margin for Trump makes me skeptical. I get that in 2020 it narrowed up, but it's still going to be very tough for Democrats to get to Alaska. I think Republicans could get to Minnesota because the results in Minnesota, especially 2016, even 2024, showed that they were close. I think, mainly 2016, but Maine could be in play, and same for New Hampshire. I think that those states could be in play. New Jersey has shown signs of potentially making a rightward comeback, so New Jersey could be in play. But there's not really too much that I see that would suggest that a long-time state of one side could really flip in the 2028 election. I'm not really seeing any signs of that.